What is up, YouTube? Trokin here. Welcome back to Draw Phase. And before we get into the video, guys, we did it. Thank you guys so much. We reached 500 subscribers. That is absolutely amazing. I can't believe that happened so fast. You guys rock. Thank you so much for your support. It's been so much fun doing the channel. And as promised, the winner of the Proving Grounds box set is LOL Piano. Congratulations to whoever you are. My X information is in the descriptions. Please DM me, and then we'll swap information. I'll get that shipped out to you as soon as possible on October 31st when the product is released. Once again, congratulations, and thank you guys so much. But we are not stopping there. We are not stopping there. So I want to do milestone giveaways, right? So the next milestone will be at 1,000 subscribers, and I will be giving away three. I will be picking three individuals, and each of those individuals will be getting a structure deck from Riftbound of your choice. So either Lee Sin, Jinx, or Victor. I have plenty of stuff pre-ordered, so you guys can pick which one you want when we hit 1,000 subscribers. So for those that are just tuning in, it is not over. You still have chances to win really cool prizes in the future, so click a button and you may win something. So awesome, dude. I'm super excited. That is incredible. Thank you guys so much. But let's go into the video. So in today's video, we're talking about Garen. Oh, Garen, you are so difficult to build. My. But anyway, so in the most recent, it was the last regional tournament, there was a Garen deck that included Aurora into it. And yeah, it's cool. It beat Kaisa, which is awesome, dude. Congratulations to you. You beat Kaisa with one of the worst legends in the game, in my opinion. However, I find it as a challenge to kind of like make Garen good, and unfortunately, like if you're gonna do anything else like other than Swarm, you might as well just use Set, right? Like in the Aurora build, Set is better than Garen, even though they have the same colors, or even in a mid-range build, Set is just better because of its legend ability. So getting straight into the deck list, we have a Swarm Garen deck, which I think is actually really cool. It's a little different. It's using some other cards and some type of, like a different type of game style. But the thing with Garen is that you have to be very careful and cautious about when to move in, because we really want to utilize that legend ability. It's just the wording of this legend, and I've talked about this with a bunch of people who I play with on my Discord. It's like if you move in with 4 or more units at that battlefield, then draw 2, that would be much better. But it's like conquering, right? So conquering is difficult because it either has to be open battlefield, and then you can move in with 4 like cheap units, or you have to make sure that you're going to come out on top, you're going to win the showdown, and on top of that, you have to have 4 units left over afterwards. So it's pretty difficult to pop off with Garen's legend ability, although drawing 2 cards is strong without paying for anything. But if you just play cautiously, you actually get it more than you would think. And I was thinking, okay, so how do we make this good? How do we make Garen actually viable? Now, it's not the best. Let's just say it. Like, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say, you know, this deck is actually, in my opinion, more suited for like a multiplayer game style play, right? Like in a 2v2 or even a free-for-all, because you have many units, right? Because you're swarming, and there is this weird thing that I add into the deck where a lot of the recruits will be buffed. So let's get into the deck list. So obviously Garen, Might of Demacia, Body and Order, Orange and Yellow. When you conquer, if you have 4+ units at that battlefield, draw 2 cards. Drawing 2 is strong, but the thing is, like we've discussed just now, you know, it's difficult to pop off. For runes, we are running 8 order runes and 4 body runes. For the battlefields, we will be running Altar to Unity. When you hold here, play a 1 recruit unit token in your base. Pretty important, right? We want to make sure we have enough units to move into the battlefields, not only to pop off with our legend ability. However, even just a 1 recruit unit just for holding is really good and quite strong. The Grand Plaza, the Exodia win. When you hold here, if you have 7+ units here, you win the game. So it's actually really difficult to actually win with this battlefield. However, if you have enough might on board and you have many units on board, and there's ways to do that, then it's a little easier. But, you know, as soon as you start putting units onto this battlefield, your opponent's going to try to do everything to stop it because obviously they're going to lose the game. So pretty cool battlefield. Also really fun in multiplayer, right? So the third battlefield is Trifarron Warcamp. This is like really like I think the battlefield that you should choose if game one, because units here have +1, and then we do buff our recruits very easily, which I'll show you in just a second. And the fact that they can get up to 3 might, and you have 4, that's 12 already. Like it's really hard once you've established like a foothold onto the Warcamp with a bunch of recruits. It's really hard for your opponent to kind of fight back with it and kind of take it from you. The chosen champion will be the yellow Garen commander. 6 energy, 1 power with 5 might. Other friendly units have +1 here. Now this card you really want to play on a battlefield that you have been holding or have conquered. Mainly because like it's slow, right? We do run confronts in there to kind of like push the deck forward, which is actually really important because it needs like a little more speed, and confront helps that very, very, very well. And so if you play this like as you have a foothold onto a battlefield, then everything just gets +2 might, and it makes it a little difficult for your opponent to take that battlefield back. We are running Flurry of Blades. Now, hear me out on this, all right? Because I've geared this towards a 1v1, right? However, it's also really good for, it's actually better in a 2v2 or a free-for-all. Mainly because Flurry of Blades deals 1 damage to all units at battlefields. Now, you're probably thinking, Troll King, come on, like, units have more than 1 might. But that is why I, with advisement from 2 of my friends, Treeman and Oni, included Imperial Decree. Now, this card is played against me, and it is so effective for 2 reasons. So we're going to skip to the end of the deck list for a quick second. 5 energy, 2 power, right? It is this combo, also with just recruits, is probably the best removal I've seen in the game, and most innovative removal. At action speed, when any unit takes damage this turn, kill it. Amazing. So if you're in multiplayer, or if your opponent in the 1v1 has both battlefields, you play Imperial Decree, right? And then you play for Flurry of Blades, and it just wipes both battlefields absolutely clean. Done, right? And then you can move in with your recruits, conquer, draw 2 cards, do all these crazy things. So it is a card that you want to play from behind, obviously. Well, you are going to be behind if you're deciding to play this, more than likely. But also, you can have recruits at your base. If you don't have Flurry of Blades in hand, right, and you have ready units, like you can just move in 1 at a time, right? And that 1 damage is enough to take down a volley bear, to take down a dead plume predator, anything really, because just because of the effect of the spell. So really cool interaction. I didn't think of this by myself. I believe it was in a tournament, right? And then it was brought to my attention by some people that I play on Discord. So really cool combo, really cool removal card. I honestly didn't even know this card really was like that relevant, but it is strong. In terms of removal, it is like board removal, widespread for yellow, which is what I think yellow really needs. Yellow is good at single target, right? Killing Blow, Harness Dragon, Call the Weak, and Hidden Blade, right? Single target removal. But this is kind of like, board removal, which is really, really strong. So that's why we run Flurry of Blades. So I do want to run a build where we're buffing recruits, right? So Pit Rookie's obviously like a really good pick for it. 2 for 2. When you play me, buff another friendly unit. Just solid, good card. You obviously want to play that like with another unit on board, or you could just play it by yourself. We are running 3 of those. I'm sorry. We're running 2 confronts. Now this card I might pop up to 3 because I found out how crucial this card was. When you're dropping down like your Faithful Manufacturers or Captain Vanguards, or Vanguard Captains, I'm sorry, right? They come in tapped, obviously, but if you have enough might, you can even Legion this, right? So if you have 5 runes ready, you can play Confront, you can play Vanguard Captain, and all those units come in ready. And you get to draw a card as well. This card is key, absolutely key to making this deck flow a lot better than it would without it. Usually the idea was to play this card with big units, like in a Volley Bear build. However, I found it better if you were just swarming, right? You play this, and then you play a bunch of your units that produce recruits, and or you could just drop down like a bunch of Cythrias, a bunch of other small units, and they just come in ready. And that is why we actually curve the deck to the least power possible. So the only thing is Call of Weak, Vanguard Captain, Imperial Decree, and Peak Guardian are the only 1, 2, 3, 4 cards that have power costs. Oh, and the Chosen Champion in Garen. So we have really good management when it comes to resources. So we can do a bunch of crazy combos. We're not sacrificing too much power. And it flows much better this way than it would with a bunch of like better cards, I guess you could say, with power costs. So yeah, Confront is really crucial. I may put it up to 3 because it is really good. Cythria of Cloudfield. So this buff build, I wanted to have as many buffs on boards as possible. So obviously, when you drop Cythria of Cloudfield, it is a 2 energy, 1 might unit. When you play another unit, buff me. So it gets an essential buff just from playing some other dude or a spell. No, I'm sorry, it's only units. And the reason we do that, and we'll skip ahead a little bit, is Vanguard Helm, a really cool and interesting gear, really good for a swarm build if you have some buffs on board. Because for 2 energy, when a buffed friendly unit dies, buff another friendly unit. Now, if you have 2 of these on your battlefield, or on your base, sorry, and 1 unit with a buff goes into a battlefield and dies, then it generates 2 buffs that you could put on different things. And I found if you spread buffs on your recruits, right, and then have a Garen and or a Peak Guardian onto the battlefield, it is really strong, right? It becomes very overwhelming, and you kind of snowball to the point where you just have, really meaty recruits, right, at potentially 3 might, moving in and out of battlefields, drawing 2 cards. So this gear is actually really cool, especially in a multiplayer game, right? If one of your units with a buff dies, you can also buff your allies' units, which is really cool too. So that is why this is in here. It does work more than you think it would, and the fact that it stacks, right? Because it says when a buff friendly unit dies, buff another friendly unit. So if you have 2 of them or even 3 of them, right, 1 buff turns into 3. So it snowballs incredibly fast, which is really cool. We're running Soaring Scout, a 2 energy, 1 might unit, Death Knell, channel 1 Rune Exhausted. We kind of want to ramp up a little bit, and also putting buffs on tiny dudes like this, moving in very fast, drawing 2 cards is really important. We are running Cold a Week, so we'll have a lot of recruits, right? We'll have a lot of cheap units. You can sacrifice a Soaring Scout and to eliminate a big threat on their end. Obviously, we want to play this as strategic as possible, right? If they're dropping down their Chosen Champion and only have 1 unit on board, then you want to play Cold a Week, right? It's less effective against like a swarm deck, right? But there aren't really many swarm decks out right now. Maybe Victor, but even Victor is not that crazy into swarm anymore as it used to be. But just play this, strategically, and you should come out on top. Vanguard Helm we talked about, and then we are running the set of unit and buff producers. So a Trifarian Glory Seeker, right, with a 2 for 2 Legion. When you play me, buff me. So it has a buff if it dies. With Vanguard Helm, right, it spreads the buff onto another one. Very good, and it's cheap. 2 for 2 becomes 3 might. Noxian Drummer, really cool card. I slept on this card for a long time. Like, I was just like, it's all right. But honestly, like, the fact that it has no power cost is awesome. That's what we want to aim for. And 3 energy, 3 might. When I move to a battlefield, play a 1 recruit unit token here. So the most important thing to realize is that it's only battlefield, right? So if you move back to a base, obviously you're not going to get that recruit. But the fact that it moves into a battlefield and, there's just another recruit there, so it is really good. You can chain this with a Confront, right? It's going to move in automatically. Also with Confront and Faithful Manufactor, it gets ready. And also, you are playing the recruit, right? Because it does state play a recruit. So let's just go over Faithful Manufactor real quick. When you play me, play a 1 might recruit unit token here. So they enter ready as well. The tokens enter ready according to how Confront reads. So that's really good. Vanguard Captain, the next card. 3 energy, 1 power, 3 might. For a Legion ability, when you play me, play 2 recruit units. So you Confront, you play Vanguard Captain, they enter ready. Also, if you're sending in a Cythria of Cloudfield before these guys move in, right, and you have 2 Vanguard Helms, right, you produce 2 buffs, right, and then Vanguard Captain has a 4, then you have a 2 recruit might unit that's already 6, 7, yeah, insane. Like, it stacks really, really fast. I was thinking for like the mid game, because it does tend to stretch out sometimes, what's a good card to have. And my my first thought had to be Fiora, right? It checks out the box for a no power cost unit, right? Because for 4 energy and 4 might, when I'm mighty, I have deflect, ganking, and shield. That's really strong, right? Those are 3 really important strong keywords in the game. And the fact that we have a lot of buffs or a lot of way to buffs, especially like if our units die with Vanguard Helm, we could send a buff to Fiora, and yeah, it just gets overwhelmingly more of a snowball effect, and it's really fun. It's a fun deck, honestly. Like I talked so much trash on Garen, but in trying to make him good and doing all these different types of builds, I found this was like the most fun and most effective for a. Is it competitive? I don't think so. I think it needs a little more support. I don't think we're there yet with Garen. I think in the next set, if they do produce like some more cards for a swarm build or any way to like increase the might of a lot of units, right? Or even just a unit that has, and I've talked about this before, like a unit with that is a 2 energy and 1 might with a death knell recruit, a 1 cost recruit, or 1 might recruit. That would be awesome, right? So I just think it's missing a couple cards that are not there yet. We talked about Imperial Decree, really great removal, especially in this because we're running a lot of recruits, as you can see, a lot of cheap units, you know, to sacrifice a unit, right? Moving in onto a battlefield to kill something big is really, really effective and really strong and really cool. And people aren't expecting it, honestly. It was like fun for my opponent to do this to me, right? So I put it in the deck because I was like, dude, this combo is insane. It's really cool. Peak Guardian, another card. Okay, so hear me out on this one that you don't see at all, right? But in a Swarm build, it's actually quite good. And I'll tell you why. So for 6 energy, 1 power, 5 might, when you play me, buff me, then if I'm at a battlefield, buff all other friendly units there. That's really good if you have a lot of units onto a battlefield, which you'll see in the gameplay. It's actually pretty easy to do. It's not that difficult. So you know, you wait a little bit. You know, you're building up your army at base, and sometimes you can build up your army pretty fast depending on your hand. You know, your first couple turns. But if you have 4 units onto a base, right, you play Peak Guardian, or I'm sorry, onto a battlefield. Even if it's just 4 recruits, those recruits become from 4 might all the way up to 8 might together. They all get a buff. It gets a buff as well. I generally like to play this after the hold, right? Of the for example, 4 recruits are holding on a battlefield. I play Peak Guardian onto that battlefield. It is a 6 might unit. It buffs all the other recruits. Then I move the recruits back and kind of just wait and see if I need them for later. Whether with Imperial Decree, if I want to chip away at something big, deleting some units from my opponent, or if I want to move in big with like a Garen, right? Because they all get +1. There's so many different things that you could do to move in and kind of like swarm in. But Peak Guardian's awesome. Like you develop a 6 might unit on a battlefield, right? And you move out of your, you move back your other units that have been buffed from it. So really cool combo, actually really effective. Because it's just something that your opponent has to worry about. Initially, when they look at one might recruit, they're like, oh, it's okay. But if they start getting buffed, right, all the way up to 2, and then if a Garen's on there, then it becomes like actually a big threat. And the last card we have is Recruit the Vanguard. At action speed, play 4 1 might recruit unit tokens. It can be played on your opponent's turn, right? If you are holding onto a battlefield, which is really cool and something that your opponent really isn't expecting, honestly. This card is generally played on your turn, right, at your base. But, you know, if you are holding on to Trifarian War Camp, right, developing 8 might onto a battlefield for 6 at action speed is really good. So it's a lot of fun. And that's the point of the deck, right? It is fun. It is, honestly, like I would suggest to play this like in the multiplayer aspect, just because it's just better when there's more people. Right, it's more effective in a 1v1. There's just like Master Yi's just too aggressive, and Kai'Sa's too aggressive. Although, you know, if you guys, you know, have any suggestions on how to make this deck a little better, then by all means hit up the comments. I also do have a sideboard for like multiplayer shenanigans, right? I'm excited when this game comes out because of the 2v2 and the free for all. So obviously we have we're running 2 salvages, 2 energy, 1 power. At action speed, you may kill a gear and draw 1. That's like for your war builds. Now hear me out. Overt operations. I know, guys. All right, I know. Like what is this card doing in the sideboard? It's for fun. It is mainly for a multiplayer game. So let's talk about the card. 5 energy, 2 power. At action speed, for each friendly unit you may spend its buff to ready it. So we have a bunch of recruits, right, that are buffed. Obviously, you want to set up for this, right? And then buff all friendly units. All friendly units. So that is your allies units as well if you are in a 2v2. That's really good. All right, so you can move into a base or into battlefields, right? Then you play this card. You spend all the buffs, right, on those units. You ready them again. You've conquered, right? Then you can move them back, and also all of your allies' units are buffed, right? It's just a really cool multiplayer card, particularly in 2v2. And actually, I used this card in a draft one time, and I actually won the game because of it, just because there's like this weird interaction where things got very mobile. So yeah, it's just like a fun card for a multiplayer game. King's Edict. Okay, so again, just hear me out on this, guys. 6 energy, 2 power. It is a spell. With no speed, starting with the next player, each other player chooses a unit you don't control that hasn't been chosen for this spell, kills those units. So yeah, everybody gets to pick a unit except for yours, right? Unfortunately, if you're ally, right, or in a multiplayer game, right, in a free-for-all, it's just like, remove 4 things on board for this amount of energy and power. Pretty cool, right? It's like party favors, right? Party favors in 1v1 is like actually pretty terrible, but in a multiplayer for up to 4 people, it's really fun, right? It gets the party started, and this is just one of those really cool cards where all the players have choices, right? And you benefit from those choices no matter what, generally, because your opponents can pick your units to kill. So they generally have to pick their own or their allies, and then like these weird things happens where they start fighting with each other. So yeah, it's pretty fun. And lastly, a Blast of Power. Mainly, this is actually meant for like a 1v1, just like a hard removal, right, for those tricky interactions, those tricky things. Sometimes you have a Kaisa moving in, moving out, and you're just like, okay, well, it's not on the battlefield, so I can't play Imperial Decree, send a recruit in there, or play Flurry of Blades. So let me just, oh wait, it is at a battlefield too. So, and then we're running just Blast of Power, just for some hard removal. In case of those like Dazzling Aurora builds, right, and we haven't drawn into salvage, we just want to switch out a Recruit the Vanguard to kill something just at a battlefield that's been holding or is too big, or in something like a Master Yi build. But yeah, that is it. Yeah, fun deck. Honestly, like I thought Garen was trash, but it has been a lot of fun. Me and Garen have connected. It's been really cool trying to make this build work. Is it there yet? No, it's not there yet. However, I think in the future, when we get more cards for this type of game style or gameplay, it'll be better. So I've talked enough. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for those 500 subscribers. And don't forget, in the future, at 1,000, we are giving away 3 structure decks of your choice to 3 lucky individuals. So stay tuned for more content in the future. Thank you guys so much. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace! What is up, guys? Stroking here with some gameplay of Garen versus a Jinx deck. Yeah, so the video is at like 2x speed just because like there's just so many recruits and so many buffs on board. It takes forever for me to like click and move everything around. So that's why it's going a little fast, but that's fine. We'll commentate just accordingly. We had Peak Guardian, a Drummer, Confront, and Call the Weak in hand. So we decided to mulligan the Peak Guardian. We can grab that later. The battlefields are Trifarian Warcamp and a Windswept Hillock. I pick up a Trifarian Glory Seeker, and that's actually a really good opening hand for this deck. So Jinx is going first. He decides to play a stack deck. Really good. That's like one of the better purple cards. Seriously, dude, it's so good. I love stack deck. You can stack deck into stack deck to potentially another stack deck, which is insane. The thing is, this deck is running the Rebel Jinx, so I have to be careful with discarding because that Rebel Jinx gets really big. Like, that build is so good. I love Oni's version of Jinx. It is so good. So we draw a Flurry of Blades, which we'll get later. We decide to tap 3 for a Drummer, putting into base, moving in, getting another Recruit. Putting it into Trifarian War Camp is really, really good. Even Windswept Hillock, because it gets ganking, you can move over and it moves into another battlefield. I get another Recruit. And yeah, so really, really cool. I'm looking at my hand right now. Oh, and he played a Chemtech Enforcer and then another stack deck, looking for some things. I'm contemplating if I want to ready with Confront the Trifarian Glory Seeker, but I think because of the Assault 2 of the Chemtech Enforcer, I'm going to just move into the battlefield, get a Recruit, and use Call of the Week to keep his side of the battlefield nice and clean, nice and empty, so I can do whatever I please. So as he's figuring out what to do next, I decide, okay, so he passes the turn to me. Yep. So I move into the Trifarian War Camp. Everything gets +1. I will then play Call the Week, sacrificing my Recruit. Get a point for conquering. He has to sacrifice the Chemtech Enforcer. That Assault 2 is like really troublesome. I then follow up with a Trifarian Glory Seeker. It is a Legioned, so I get a buff on it. And then I pass the turn. So pretty strong, first couple turns. Buffing and recruits is really cool. The only issue is, honestly, like on TTS, I wish there was another interface other than the actual card buffs, because like at one point there's just so much stuff like on the board. It's hard to maneuver and like see what's going on. So he plays another Chemtech Enforcers and then discards the Flame Choppers, pays the power to play the Flame Chopper. All right, cool. So I got my Peak Guardian, which is what I mulligan. I decide to move back. That's like something you kind of have to like really consider with Garen, is like moving in and moving out to make sure you're utilizing everything properly. I had the time, so I moved out of the Trifarian War Camp with my drummer, and I played my chosen champion Garen, so I get a little extra might because that Chemtech Enforcer with Assault +2 is a little troublesome, and wherever he decides to move in, I'm going to move in onto the battlefield. If it's empty, right, I get 4, and then I conquered. I could potentially draw 2 cards. And then I'll play my Peak Guardian and giving everything a buff, which is really strong. So he moves into Trifarian War Camp. Assault effect triggers, but there's nothing there, so I don't have to worry about that. And then he also moves into Windswept Hillock, so he doubles up on points and passes turn. Then I decide to play a Confront, and I draw a card. So I'm playing as many things as possible. He does have full runes, so there's a lot of potential for removal, but I think I just have to go for it. So I play a Pit Rookie. I buff the drummer, so it is at 4 might, and then I play a Soaring Scout, all of which gets ready. So like I was talking about in the description, in the deck tech, Confront is really key into moving in onto battlefields with a lot of units, so we get that benefit from the Legend of ability. So we get a Recruit, and as you can see right now, it is just a hot mess with all these buffs and recruits there. It's kind of insane. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and everything gets buffs from Garen as well. He decides to Rebuke, very, very strong, but he is playing a lot of power, so he pops the Garen back into my hand. Everything drops down by 1, and he follows up with another Rebuke, insane, targeting my drummer. So unfortunately, I will not getting that Legend ability. Like I said, dude, that Legend ability is so hard to get off just because like there's so many actions and reactions. Like the bulk of the game happens during showdowns, So the fact that it is dependent on conquering with 4 or more units is insane. I do get to conquer. I do score a point, which is fine. 2 of my things get back into my hand. He sacrifices 4 runes, or recycles rather. But still, I do have holding position on Windswept Hillock, so I can gank over. But then he Falling Stars and kind of just cleans up my side of the field. But he is down to 3 runes, and because, like I was saying in the deck tech, I tailored the deck to not having too many power costs, right? We're sitting comfortably at 6 and 10 now. So I played my Vanguard Helm because I figured that would be more useful in the future. I should have played it earlier because those buffs would have bounced around to other units. So I play my drummer. I play my Trifarian Glory Seeker as well. It gets a buff. And then I believe I'm going to be passing the turn. He did decide to move back with his with his flame choppers. I'm sorry. So right now I have 1, 2 units, and if I move into a battlefield, I'll get 3 from the recruit. So I'm just kind of figuring out the Flurry of Blades is kind of just dead in my hand right now without the Imperial Decree. However, passing over to him, he draws another 2, or he draws a card, gets another 2 runes, and he's kind of deciding what to do next, where he wants to move in. Decides Windswept Hillock, which is good because he can always gank over and give like a little support if he develops some units on board. And then it really depends on my top deck and what I draw to kind of counter. So he's tapping 1, 2, 5, and ooh, a Draven. Very, very strong. That card is ridiculously good. I love it so much. It goes up to, I believe, 7 might. Yep, 7 might. I draw a Fiora, which is really good, and with Vanguard Helm onto the battlefield, if something dies, right, I can put a buff on Fiora, and it becomes mighty, getting all those awesome keywords. So looking at my hand right now, I see he's passing over. I'm deciding if I want to pop a unit. Yep, so I move over with Drummer to Trifarian Warcamp. It is a 4 might unit. I have 6 might on board because of the recruit I get. I decide to develop a Fiora there. Then I am tapping. Oh yeah, there's the big play. So I decide to play a Peak Guardian. Insane, dude. Insane. So everything gets a buff there. 4 buffs across units on Trifarian Warcamp. Peak Guardian is 5, 6, 7. Fiora is also a 5, 6 might unit. Insane. Just a lot of power on board. Then I decide to move in with my Trifarian Glory Seeker onto the Chompers. I win that battlefield. I take the battlefield in the showdown, going up to 5 points, and I pass the turn. Yeah, so Trifarian Warcamp is really good in this deck because we go wide. And then with Peak Guardian, I can buff everything. So what is that? That's 6, 7, plus another 5. That is 12. Then the recruit is 13, 14, 15, then plus another 6. That's over 20. Dude, that's just insane. So he has his Draven. It's not over yet though. It's not over yet. Jinx has a lot of tools he could do. Also moving around that Rebel Jinx in and out, discarding cards. I have to worry about Super Mega Death Rock and can target down my units. But the interesting thing is that whatever is not buffed, if it does get killed, that buff moves to a different unit because of Vanguard Helm. Really cool gear. I love it. I absolutely love that gear. It is really cool if you go wide and buff things. It's kind of like the perfect card for this build. So he's just deciding on how to react to this crazy board state with like 20 might on one of the bases. So he moves in. That 7 might Draven will kill the Trifarian Glory Seeker. He gives up to 5 points, and Draven gets another might. Super cool card. He taps all his runes, readying his Rebel Jinx, which I was really worried about because he has lots of ways to kind of buff that Jinx, move in, move out, and get really big. So I draw a Call of the Week, which is really good in the situation, especially if he only has 2 units. I can easily sacrifice one of my recruits, or the one recruit there on board that is buffed, and then that buff would go on to another unit. But I decide to first play the Garen because that is exactly what I was going to do. And it's just like I said, I sped up the game because it's such a hot mess on that board, on that battlefield right now. So I decided to play Call of the Week right after the Garen, right, killing my recruit. Then he has to pick one of his units to kill as well, and then the buff on the recruit because of Vanguard Helm will be placed on Garen, making him really strong. And also, like, the math on that board state is just insane. Garen gives +1, Trifarian Warcamp gives +1, and then all the other buffs as well. I did not actually put the buff on Garen quite yet, but I did remember later that he does get 1 as well. And yeah, there's just like the math on that board state is just kind of like difficult to do, even though it's just adding. Yeah, so Garen gets +1 to everything, gives +1 to everything. Everything is buffed. Trifarian Warcamp. Yeah, so it's just pretty interesting how big an army can get with the combo of Peak Guardian, the buffs, and holding on to those buffs with Vanguard Helm, moving it around to other individuals. sacrificing with Call of the Week, which is really strong. And if it wasn't for the Battlefield, that's the only downside, I think, with this deck, is that it is very Battlefield dependent. However, there are a lot of other decks as well, like Kaisa with Reaver's Row. And at that point, my opponent decides to concede. He just didn't have enough juice. I think those rebukes kind of hurt him a little bit, but he wasn't drawing very well, he was mentioning. So yeah, like honestly, guys, like, you know, have fun playing the game, right? And I've talked a lot of trash on Garen in the past. However, I think it has potential, right? And honestly, the last couple days, it's been very fun trying to play Garen. So thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate support, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.